of an eye, it'll all disappear. And we'll turn from this world to a world without end, where each sin that we've sown will be shown in our favor. This is our life, this is our labor, till it's all one. All is one. And it's all one. The light and the darkness, the sweetness, the sorrow, it's all one. The good and the bad, what's past and tomorrow, and it's all one. The near and the far, revealed and concealed in us, all is one.
Hello everybody. We are live. Hello, Asaf from Israel here, Seth from New Jersey. What's up, Seth?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we are here, the quarantine. We are still connecting through the quarantine, and even if some of you are already out of the quarantine, I don't know, Seth, maybe we should evolve.
Yeah,
The
I think we
name of the
need
show
to
should evolve.
we need to rebrand the show to become this kind of like spaceship that moves us through all crises and
Right.
moves us into the new connected world. Not just we'll remember back fondly. Remember our first quarantine. Remember our first global pandemic. And
Yeah.
I
Our first.
our first.
You're implying there's going to be more. Yeah.
Well, I'm implying that we're in the process of something that Kabbalists call the last generation, which sounds doomsday if you don't know what it means. The last generation means that until now, all of reality developed according to instinct, hormones, internal desires. I want to eat, I want to procreate, I want to, just reality moved based on just natural feelings. And the last generation means the last generation of that, the first generation where we need to develop, or we have the opportunity to develop based consciously by educating ourselves towards what is the purpose of all this. So because of that, we have the opportunity to either go through it comfortably and quickly, which I wanted to actually get to the question that we spoke about this morning, or in a more painful way. So that we should rebrand our show. We maybe you could even give us some ideas here. Biruk tells us that he loves us. Thank you, man. I think from Ethiopia. It's amazing to be with everybody three times a week.
While we're thinking about rebranding the show, maybe you guys tell us where you're watching from. As always, it's it's a great feeling to connect with all of you every time we go on this show. Also last generation, you just mentioned it, so maybe let's just riff on this for a second here. Another angle or another point with regards to that concept, the last generation, it's actually the first stage or the entrance to the stage where humanity is being treated by nature as a single one species openly, meaning that we can anticipate and expect nature to continue to treat us this way, to show us that we're connected, to show us that we are an integral society, to show us that our well-being is interdependent, that anything that happens in one side of the world immediately affects and influences all the other parts. And the point is that we have to put ourselves under that law of integrality, that integral law of nature.
This is what we were talking about This is why I called you this morning about this question that I was
Yeah.
hoping we can open up today. So, a question I received, and it's very, very interesting. Asaf, there's been, um, I'm not a historian, but you probably know a few extinctions already on the planet. The planet
Yeah, I think
was
they say five. I think they say five or
five
six.
major ones, plus there's been minor extinctions.
Okay.
Um, in the quarantine, I've made every day. I have my kids call it the indoctrination station. We have to sit at the kitchen table and we watch a video about like the formation of the Earth or
Oh, nice. I
nature. Or so.
I watched with my boy One Strange Rock. You know that one?
No, but you send
It's
me the link. I'll check it out.
I'll recommend it to you and to all our viewers. It's one of those things that is like a clean, kind of like nice nature show, but it's not just a nature show. They're really, especially the first episode. Later on, they kind of deviate in all kinds of directions, but the first one really gives a lot of examples of how nature is this one interconnected entity, and our life and our breathing process depends, every gasp of air that you take depends on the little microbial, creatures that exist in the ocean. Like, and they show that interconnectedness beautifully. So One Strange Rock, sure, recommend
Okay,
it.
so we'll watch that in the indoctrination station this week. So,
Yeah.
uh, so the so we've been looking at okay, so the Earth was on fire for a couple 100 million years, and the Earth was frozen for 100 million years, and it went through all of these processes. So when the Kabbalist comes and says, when humanity unites, the bear will walk through your backyard and you can sit and sip your tea and everything will be fine and there'll be no more problems in the world and the wolf will lie with the lamb and all these things. Asaf, what so the question the student asked, and let's open it up here. um, there was always problems way before we got here. In fact, the problems, you could say, were even worse before we got here. We didn't feel them, right? There weren't such like, I don't know if a dinosaur is called a sentient being, but there weren't creatures that felt in the way that we feel. But there's always been problems on Earth. So why do we think now, is the question, that by us connecting and us making good relationships between us, how is that going to calm down all of reality? And yeah, let's get into that. We'll
I
probably
think
have to do like,
I think, Seth, it really it depends on, first of all, how do we define problems? How do you define problems?
well, like the entire world becoming,
Mass
all
extinction.
of the,
Let's
yeah, mass extinction. I would consider that a problem.
Okay, let's try to agree that mass extinction is a problem. So, not really. Here's the thing. From our perspective, in our eyes, yeah, we can look at that and say that's a problem. But nature looks at that and says that's evolution. So evolution is not this straight line or even a linear kind of ascent. It's a bumpy road. It is a very convoluted, complicated, intricate kind of process that enables the growth of a higher level of life every step of evolution. And essentially, Kabbalah explains it like this, that there are essentially two forces, and this stems from the nature of creation itself. Those who study things like the Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah and other hardcore Kabbalistic texts that we're not going to get into understand it very well on a technical level. But you can see it in the evolution, the billions of years of evolution of nature as well. There's basically two forces, two opposite forces. And it is the interplay between them that creates life. And that is in everything. So, you have
keep us focused here on the question.
Yeah, but you gotta lay some foundations in order to better understand it. Okay, so you gotta give me some leeway
I have a
here.
short attention span.
You guys, this millennial generation, what are
You're
you?
about to call me a millennial. I could be your father.
Anyways, so no, but look, yeah, there's these two forces. Okay, so make it easy for you. So plus and minus, heat and cold, ebb and flow, male and female, contraction and expansion, exhale, inhale. It's everywhere. On every level, the still, vegetative, animate, and human, you'll find these two forces that clothe into all kinds of instances. Matter, physiology, biology, chemistry, processes. It's always these two countering forces that complement each other. But if you look at it from, with an incomplete perspective, or if you look at them in the middle of their thing, they look like they're fighting, right? So you have mass extinction happening all of a sudden. But that gives birth to a whole new level of evolution. You had like...
So we should just embrace our impending extinction?
No, we need to first of all understand the process. There was a time, okay, that the Earth was flammable because there was too much oxygen in the environment. So the Earth was flammable, and that caused one of the mass extinctions. So what does nature do? Nature then created a balance by introducing more species, more called animals, into the environment. So they take the O2 and the plants then do the opposite, and then you have this balance between the oxygen, the carbon dioxide.
So all those processes take long.
Then came cut it short, to humans. Hello, humans. Okay, whatever. Like, let's say, those that begin to look like us, like 200,000 years ago, something like that. Maybe I'm being inaccurate here, but humans have a very unique role in this process. So unlike all the other elements and levels of evolution before us, we are conscious and we can partake in this evolution. So instead of just two forces that are going back and forth, ebb and flow and heat and cold and male and female, etc., that are constantly bumping into each other, creating the next level of life, then come humans, who are a very complicated result of a lot of years and processes of evolution already, and they have consciousness, and they can partake in this process, and so they can help connect.
Yeah, hold on. So this is a big moment. So we went through all of these billions of years.
No, go ahead.
We went through all these billions of years of the Earth is on fire, then it freezes, and then there's no oxygen, then it goes up in flames.
How did you manage to take us through all this? I didn't plan to start the show with billions of years of evolution, Seth.
What I want to say is why
I'm happy.
The simple question is, the world has always been through, extinctions and stuff like that. So why are we saying that humans that now humans have something to do with all of this?
Right. Point of nature in these two opposite forces is to bring them to a more complicated, more advanced kind of connection at every level. Here's the thing. Man, as a conscious being, can help do that. You get that? We are capable of connecting the two lines of evolution that drive all of evolution.
Big pluses and minuses.
Exactly. In Kabbalah, this is called the left and right within the human being. And this is advanced, but I'm just throwing these concepts so people kind of like, maybe they heard something and now it clicks for them. There's a concept called the three lines in the work of the person towards spiritual evolution, spiritual progress. And what it means is learning how to balance these forces, the plus and minus, the left and right, within us. We are the only creatures that have, on the one hand, a huge sense of ego that makes us feel individualistically separated from everyone else, and the whole world revolves around, what pains my foot right now. Everything revolves around me. It's all about me. On the one hand, we are the only creatures who have that. On the other hand, we also have an evolved sense of others. We have a capability of sensing the others like no other creature has. We are the most social creatures
It's almost like
that
we're
exist.
we're we're two. It's almost like we're two creatures at the same time,
We are the result of
or two
billions of
creatures, not
years.
not two, but two
Yeah,
creatures.
yeah, we're the result of billions of years of these two forces coming together and molding a creature that can then consciously continue this beautiful act of evolution. And so that's why if we begin to partake this way, if we begin to balance the plus and minus, if we begin to actually work towards this balance between the positive and the negative forces in nature, then we won't require the correcting forces of evolution to be as bumpy. Does that make sense? To be as
So
powerful.
let's sum it up. Let's sum it
We
up.
will
So
convert it. Yeah.
we went through all of this process. So the question is, there's always been terrible things that have happened. There's always been cataclysms. The earth was on fire for 100 million years. The earth was an ice ball for 100 million years. For the last 100 years, 200 years, humans have been wreaking havoc. And why do we think now that there's something so special about us? And the Kabbalists come and say that by human beings connecting, we can bring harmony, not only on the level of the humans, but when the humans achieve this level of integrality and harmony between us, that it balances the entire the structure of creation, meaning all of the animate, all the vegetative.
All the levels are connected. It ripples through the system. What we do radiates throughout the levels. And guess what? We're the highest level. The still, the vegetative, the animal level, then comes the human, which begins from the animal level, but can develop into what Kabbalah actually calls human, which is that connected being, that spiritual being. And so that's why what we do affects the rest of the levels, and all the levels are connected to each other. Nothing is separate from anything else in nature. By the way, you can ask yourself now, what's going on right now after this coronavirus, which hasn't ended, by the way. It's a mistake to think that it ended just because our leaders and our governments are trying to reopen the economy because there's nothing else that they know how to do. They don't see a vision for how to create a new kind of balanced economy, so they're just in their knee-jerk kind of way try to go back to what they had previously, because it's the only thing they know, right? And we're afraid of not knowing where to go. But so we think the coronavirus is over. It's not over. If you look at what the scientists are saying, what the experts are saying, a second wave is coming. It's only a question of how powerful, how soon. But beyond that, in addition to that, look at things. If you're attentive to what's happening in the news in that regard, there are so many things that are beginning to sort of accumulate in terms of how nature is closing in on us. Did you hear about those murder hornets? Did we talk about that? I don't remember.
Yeah, we talked about the murder hornets, and we talked about the plague of locusts, and we talked about it snowed here yesterday.
There's another thing. I don't know if you saw this one. There's something they call gypsy moths. And
we have them here.
Yeah,
it's
some also
a problem with them.
So this is another bug to worry about. Those murder hornets, for instance, by the way, it's not just that if they sting you, it's excruciating pain for people. The problem is that they kill bees. And again, all levels of nature are connected. You don't want
no bees, no food.
No bees, no food.
Okay, so we're not here to scare everybody. We're here to talk. We're here to talk about what happens with the human connection. That when humans connect, it ripples through the whole system. And until now, everything in our evolution. The reason why the Kabbalists call this the last generation is because up until now, up until this era of time, we advanced according to cause and effect, according to instinct. And now we hit a dead end. Now we're at a point where we kind of maxed out the ego. We charged the credit card, to the limit. And now we have to take control of our destiny, not just a few people who attain this, but now all humanity, black, white, yellow, red, everyone needs to come to this together, to this.
You could argue what you just said inspired this, but just to take it on another tangent here, okay? You could argue that what we've done, especially in the last century, um, um, basically pillaging, raping, polluting, depleting nature has it, now nature is puking all that garbage back to us in the form of these, you know, natural potential natural disasters. And what it's doing is, you know, unlike a human being that looks for revenge from his ego, for his ego, nature is looking for balance. That's it. But look at how intelligent nature is, destroying the basis of what we are used to do, which is, you know, how in our socioeconomics we basically rape nature. So nature is will be able to use all kinds of means in order to take that foundation under our legs, under our
If
feet.
you came from another planet and you looked at what's happening, I don't think you would call the virus or nature like, you know, exacting some revenge or punishing something. I mean, you would look at a family where both parents leave for work in the morning. They come home at the end of the night exhausted, spend an hour with the kid, sit down in front of the television, go to sleep, and do the thing all over again. They're exhausted. The kids never get to spend quality time with them. Who knows if they're actually preparing like a nutritious meal
Yeah.
together. And the alien would be like, this is what you
No,
did after hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. This is the best you can do. Like, why don't you just stop all this and actually spend time together? Why is everyone in your
plus,
neighborhood leaving for work in the morning and coming home late at night and nobody's taking care of the kids? Why don't you work together? Why don't you share
can't you work
responsibilities?
something out that works out better for you? Like, come on, you're
Half the
like,
planet has no food and the other half is actually throwing
like
away
why?
50% of the
Yeah,
food. Like,
and that alien, by the way, on his or her way to Earth, they'd see Earth from outside, and Earth from outside, when you zoom out on Earth, it's very clear that it's one single being. It's only our perspective, you know, on Earth through our egos that limits us. There's this, by the way, a very interesting effect. I was just reminded of the stuff something I saw in this in One Strange Rock, which I mentioned. It's about, by the way, it's about astronauts who leave Earth and they see Earth from space. So something really interesting happens with astronauts. They go through something called the overview effect, I believe, where basically they're overwhelmed by this sudden revelation of seeing the place that gave you life, suddenly seeing it from outside and detaching from gravity, and all of a sudden, like, that kind of thing. So that's called the overview effect. And they all unanimously, pretty much, say that they get a very clear understanding that we're all one, that nature's one, that the planet's one, and that we are not conducting ourselves in the right way to keep this place in balance. It just becomes very, very emotionally clear to them. Anyway,
so if we let's do a
yeah,
global check in
let's
here.
do a global
Hi,
check.
I'm so happy to see everyone here again. Hey, Corin, and a few new names that I don't recognize here. We have friends here from, thank you, Bright, for our global check, from Ethiopia, North Carolina, Toronto, Nigeria, Bergen, Norway, New York, Ghana, Rhode Island, The Hague, Brooklyn,
Yeah.
Massachusetts, the UK, Philadelphia, and Miami. Wow.
Mm.
There is a couple questions from a couple different angles, and we also have a very cool and interesting guest today that we want to save time for. So maybe one or two questions, and then we can move to our guest. How's that sound?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe take a
Okay.
question while I'll send her the link and she can join us.
Okay. So they're from a couple different angles. So Samson, I think from Ethiopia, is asking, if everything is positive and negative, can we take Isaac and Abraham as forces? Okay, so Samson, you're using words that are used in the ancient books of Kabbalah, and what if you begin to learn about the Sephirot, what's happening is there's a whole structure. These names are forces either on the right side or the left side or even on the middle side. Like Joseph was one of the forces on the middle side, and then as we um, ascend the spiritual ladder to what's called adhesion with the creator, which means balancing all of these forces, we go through these left, right, which you're calling, at one point it's Isaac and then Abraham, and it's a process of aiming through these sphirot, it's called, and so these are these right and left forces. So when you're reading these stories, that's who these characters are. Shira, hi Shira. Shira is one of our steady friends here. Okay.
So, maybe you want to go to another question, or I think we already have Josie on the line here.
Let's do it.
So let's introduce Josie. We'll see her in just 1 second. While she comes on, I'll just mention who she is. Josia Nakash. She is a friend, and maybe you want to go to another question. Ooh, we have feedback, Josie. We have feedback from you.
1 second.
Okay, we can hear you. We can't see you, and we can hear ourselves. There we go. Here's Josie. Josie, how are you? Josie is
good, thanks.
Josie, you are the founder of Good Vibe Agency, which is a great name for an agency, and very characteristic of you as well, because you're always in good vibes. And other than that, you're also in the last, I think, 2 years, right? Something like that. You're part of this interesting movement that is working to improve human connections in businesses, in companies, mostly high-tech companies, I believe so. How are you doing? What's up?
Good. A few movements, actually, a few circles.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you guys down to earth because you're talking about people in astronauts and forces and
evolution.
Before we get into it too deep, I'll just tell you very briefly that in the business world, they're all into the positive forces right now, and they haven't gotten to the negative stuff yet. So all the stuff you're talking about, they're hearing it, but it's not like they're not there yet. They're still focused on all the positive.
You're dealing with important business leaders, coaches around.
I live on LinkedIn these days. A lot of us are just living on LinkedIn because there's all these discussions and these circles are happening on LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn for 20 years. I was in the first 100,000 people to join LinkedIn, and I thought I missed the boat. But only in the last year or two, and everybody's talking about it, LinkedIn has become very, very powerful tool. Like, it really allows you to connect with the exact right people you want to connect with. And all the top leaders and coaches and top HR people in the world, they're all, we're all in circles there, and we do all kinds of things together.
So Josie, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, so the it never happened to us before.
Josie, you are
high-tech consultant.
Yeah, when you do that, I want to ask this. First of all, I think I've seen too, just from reading up on it here and there is some understanding from a couple years ago already in the high-tech realm mostly, right? That something needs to change in how businesses work. They understand something from, I don't know, just from being, I don't know, young and innovative, I guess. I don't know. But
not just young. It's not just from there. It comes from a place of core values of like the founders of the company. And it did start. It started a few years ago. There's, very people who are at the height of this process, like Bob Chapman, I was telling you about, Seth. He wrote Everybody Matters. He just did a book tour in Europe before this whole Corona thing started. And he's always talking about treat your people, like you really care about them, like somebody else's kids. He's talking about concern, and he really created this amazing environment. And I see in startup companies here in Israel, the places where, not when Corona started, a year before that, they really started creating this amazing environment. And because I'm hacking HR in Israel, we also did connection circles in a few startup companies. And you really see that they have this desire to grow, to change. They want, all these people that I'm in touch with, they're very, very evolved. You can talk to them about anything. They're very open. They want to learn. They understand that they have to grow and change all the time, every day. They have like this growth mindset. So these things are very natural for them. So, and they're very, very focused on their values and doing things for the right reasons, especially the younger entrepreneurs. They don't want to just be in business for the sake of business. That's not why they're in business. They want it to be meaningful. They want people to feel good. They want to build the kind of companies that they would be happy to work for themselves as employees. It's a whole new wave of behavior, of human behavior.
So when you encounter such people with your background in the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is all about human connections,
which they know.
Yeah, which you
No, they know where my stuff comes from.
That's good.
I don't make a big deal about it, but they know.
Okay, so that's so you're open about that. Everyone knows like where you draw your inspiration from, your wisdom from. That's very cool to hear. I want to ask you this. What do you find that people understand in terms of human connection, and what do you think Kabbalah still needs to add to them? Because that movement kind of started, from just, people who are doing high tech, doing business. So what do you see that where do they get stuck? Yeah.
First of all, it comes from a different place where we're always sort of talking about. We're always in our stuff. We're always sort of talking in an abstract matter about processes that are going to happen in the world and everything. For them, it's not abstract. They're in business. They have to move. When something happens, they have to adjust themselves to the reality, to the conditions, to the new reality. For a startup, that can be every morning you wake up and you have to reinvent your business. And so in a situation like this, they're moving much faster than everyone else. They're not sitting and waiting for somebody to give them permission or to tell them do this or do that, or for some great, enlightenment to fall on them. They're in this atmosphere, they're in this environment of brainstorming all together. They're all this, new inclusion and diversity, all this stuff they're talking about. For them, it's their life. That's how they live. I'll just give you a quick example. When Seth called me today, I was speaking to an entrepreneur who made friends with this entrepreneur in Italy who lost 2 million euros worth of business. I thought, he used to do these huge digital exhibitions, and, the whole exhibition convention industry just in 1 hour was like gone the minute they canceled the Mobile World Congress. So he has employees and everything, and he right away pivoted and started making this machine that allows people to disinfect their hands very quickly wherever they are. It's like this contraption, and he just switched his whole business. So it's just an amazing example. This guy's 34 years old. He has 2 kids. Instead of firing his all his employees because his business just fell off a cliff, these people are young and they're resilient, and they sit down and they talk and they think about things, and it's a whole different way of being than just like, oh, let's maybe think about a future stage.
Josie,
let me ask how we're going to handle it.
Let me ask you something specific. So, is it still it's great. If we were not talking about the wisdom of Kabbalah, we'd be very satisfied with this, that, we're not waiting for some government agency to tell us what to do. And we wish that everybody would start to behave like that. Neighbors start to share with each other. People start to work together, pool resources, all those kind of things, right? Instead of just sitting at home, just watching the news, waiting for someone to tell me when to get my vaccine.
For them, it's not just business. For them, that's part of it. How can we help with the solution? How can we contribute to the collective? All those things are very important to them because it's part of your brand now. You can't just behave a certain way in your company and behave another way outside. Your employees are your brand. Your employees have to feel good about being part of your company. A great example is how Airbnb just let go 25% of their employees. They fired a whole bunch of people, but they did it in an amazingly human way. And that actually, they used that opportunity to boost their brand.
Okay,
they did it in such a compassionate way.
But I want to challenge you here. Sorry, Seth, for
yeah, please challenge that.
I want to understand because don't they see, let's not, use names, but like leaders of companies that you're encountering, high-tech companies and all that, don't they see that at least some of what they're doing, even if they're trying to, run their companies nicely and be nice to the employees and so on, that at the end of the day, a lot of what they're doing is exploitation towards nature and exploitation towards the rest of the system, and maybe unnecessary when it comes to the cost versus benefit in the overall scheme of things? where do you think that the understanding of the kind of balance that we need to reach ends? Do you feel like people will be in business and in high tech will be open to the idea that the whole economy needs to change, that there's a socio-economic revolution that needs to happen?
Well, the high tech companies are they're actually gonna boost this whole process. It's gonna be a whole transition to digital, and you can already see that. And I told Seth that first the investors shut everything down the minute this happened, the VCs, and then a week later they saw, wait, we need all these new things because we've switched everything to the virtual realm. So we need, all of a sudden, these companies like Monday.com got a huge injection of money, and the VCs opened back up for business, and they're investing in all these companies that are good for the next stage. So yes, there is an adjustment, and it's very clear that lots of people are just, it was very nice meeting you, it was great, and it's clear that we no longer have a reason to exist, and those companies went bye-bye. But there's a whole bunch of companies that they're actually going to increase what they're doing because of this transition.
What about the understanding that the recognition of concepts like in terms of human connection, of rising above the human ego? Is that something that these kinds of movements practice? Is that something that is a goal?
They are talking about it, and I've been talking about it for a year. There's somebody like Cy Wakeman, who I had a meeting with like a few weeks ago. She's one of the speakers, and I sent her a few of our books, or we sent her books. She talks about the higher ego and the lower ego. Again, she speaks amazingly well about these concepts, and she's very, very popular. She has a whole concept of like ditch the drama, and it's made her very, very successful because she's always talking about how all this toxic stuff in your environment, it's costing you a lot of money. These are things that these people really, really understand already in the business world. They understand, but they're still talking about, like I said before, they're talking about kindness and caring and compassion. This is like the human workplace. This is a whole new way to do business. You cannot be horrible to your people and expect to succeed in business.
Yeah, but what about
the old egoistic way of doing business?
Yeah, that's some sort of an awakening towards some sort of a more human level of relationship between people. But what about changing the whole concept of business?
Well, let's hold on a minute. Yeah. I don't think that people who aren't studying these things are capable of understanding what it means to rise above the ego. I mean,
they do understand. I've been, but it trickles in. It's not like they go the next morning and change everything that they're doing. That's not how it works. I've been with these people for a year in meetings and circles and in workshops, and these things trickle down, and then all of a sudden you see they write a comment on LinkedIn, oh, that's what Josie's always talking about. But it takes time. It trickles in, and all of a sudden this corona came and everyone got this like huge EQ boost, this emotional intelligence boost, and they can feel that they got this huge advancement. They're seeing all the silver lining. All these people that I'm with, they're sort of very evolved. They're not regular just average people walking down the street. They're very evolved. They're people that have been in HR for decades. They're always looking for the next thing. They're always trying to process all these, what do we do now? They're very evolved people. So they're seeing all the silver lining in this crisis. Like at the beginning, it was like, oh my God, we have to move all our people to work from home. And now everyone's talking about, this is amazing. They don't have to commute. It's less gas. It's less pollution. Okay, we're going to have to make an adjustment. We have all these offices, and now this week they're having conventions about that. How are we going to reorganize and everything? But people are seeing the silver lining. People are seeing there's a lot of great things coming out of this crisis. Let's not waste this crisis. That's what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, that's I think that's the main thing here. So if you can take what you're seeing and kind of encapsulate it, where do you see that? Now you're not dealing with a lot of mom and pop businesses. You're dealing with like cutting edge kind of companies and thinkers, but in general, and And you're speaking now. We have, if you heard before, who's here?
I do have a mom and pop business. I was in a breakout room the other day, and one of the women, Canadian woman, she started crying. And I know her, but I didn't know her story. You know, till you get in a breakout room with someone, then you hear the story. And she had a very successful consulting business, her and her husband. They sold their house so they can invest in their employees. And they did all that, and then Corona hits, and they had to fire everyone. And now she's living in her daughter's basement in Edmonton. So there are the mom and pop stories, but I'm telling you what I told her. You're a connection expert. You don't realize it, but these people are going to have to just sort of repackage themselves and not be consultants, but they're going to be they already. This is a woman that's been on these circles for a year, and she doesn't realize that she's a connection expert. Do you know what I'm saying? She sees herself as a consultant. That's how she's packaged herself always, her and her husband. Strategic consultant. But people don't need, that. From now on, people are going to need connection. They're going to need connection experts. They're going to need this new education. And the people in my circles understand that. It's just, how's the transition going to happen?
That's the question is, so the transition is going to happen. We're not sure what's going to happen. I mean, nature came in with the virus and shut down, half the businesses. But from what I hear, what you're saying is that people who are surviving, if they are lucky enough to be in a business that can survive, or they're able to pivot into something else, the model and the environment that they see in the workplace is a different way of understanding what the nature of the business is and what the nature of the relationship between the employees and the company are, whether it's going to be a small business or a startup or something else.
It's this whole vibe. Like, I joined these meetings a year ago. It's called Humans First. And I joined right at the beginning. And right when I joined, I was like, who are you people? You're just connecting for the sake of connecting. And they put a link on LinkedIn and they said anyone can join. So I joined, and I was just shocked. And I wrote a lot of posts about this. If you Google my name, you'll see they don't realize it, but they do exactly what we do, just without all the, spiritual elements to it. And they're really focused on human connection and deepening the human connection. So we've gone through a really amazing process.
Josie, I want to ask you a last question here to conclude this interview before we go to we have some questions from viewers that we promised to get to. So I want to ask you a last question for this one. What would be your vision? Like, if you could take it like all the way and taking into account what you know about the future in terms of how radical a change needs to happen, that it's not just, people learning how to better cooperate in work, in business, that, the priorities will have to change in how the whole economy works. What would be your vision in terms of, what needs to happen? Can you give us some of that bigger thinking? It's
the same vision that I had a decade ago, because I've been in the wisdom of Kabbalah for 20 years. The vision for me has always been that the start is going to come from the business world. They have money, they have resources, they have talent. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of organizing things differently. I thought it was going to come, because I'm a marketing expert. I thought it was going to come from a marketing perspective, their message, how they communicate with the world. I was always going there and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden they asked me to do this hacking HR thing, and somehow I got into this whole HR business, and I'm not an HR professional. So then I saw, this is a good place for me. It's about the people. They're talking about the people, the connection between people, values, human behavior. All those examples are going to come from the business world, because in the business world, you don't have a choice. You have to change. Everyone else can maybe take their time and, I'll go watch this movie and that. No, in the business world, things have to function. Things have to work. So the examples are going to come from there. Okay. Especially watch the startup companies, because the startup companies move very quickly.
What can I say? We all hope maybe that, maybe they will help pioneer the revolution.
I promise you they will.
Maybe, or or else. Okay, Josie, thank you so much for being with us.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Josie, thank you.
Thanks, Josie.
Okay, so yeah, that was Josie. A lot of optimism and good vibes. It's not for no reason that she's the founder of the Good Vibe Agency. Okay, Seth, you want to move on to some questions?
Yeah, Ina Smirnova. Does the new generation, okay, this would have been for Josie, the new generation of entrepreneurs, do they understand what they're evolving into? I think maybe that was
but
your
I'll
question.
just say briefly, that's exactly what I was trying to get at, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ina. I don't think so. Here's the thing. From my point of view, I don't think so. I do think that, there is, it's very true. There's some search. There's at least some search for doing things differently in a more human way and all that. I don't think that people who are in, at the end of the day bothered by the bottom line can, change totally invert that end goal, which is something totally different. So nature will do its thing, and we'll see.
Okay, so Bright has posted a bunch of questions for us here. We have, did we do our second global check yet? We got Morocco, Zambia, South. I don't know how we're spreading so fast in Africa. This is unbelievable.
Iowa, Zambia,
Southern Africa, and Iowa, and Scotland. Okay, so here's a question from Yusuf. I hear many talking about protecting yourself with a mask and washing your hands 1,000 times. So he's asking, other than wearing a mask and washing your hand 1,000 times, can you really protect yourself?
Oh, wow. I saw, I think you saw that as well. I saw a conversation today between Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman, our teacher, and some of the writers team who kind of draw inspirations from these meetings and go and write all kinds of articles and books. And he actually proposed something very interesting, that if we researched what would happen between a group of people who would practice very practically, pragmatically, activities to create positive social bonds between them, and another group that wouldn't, that the connected group would be more immune, more protected from viruses. And he said that if we conducted such a research, he think we would see very interesting results. Now, it's from just like some research that I've done in the past. Just looking at the research that exists, it is very interesting. There's even a research from 20 years ago that showed that people with more social ties and more kinds of social ties, positive social ties, were less susceptible to two kinds of viruses of the common flu. So that's very interesting. And it's no secret that human connection bolsters our immune system. That has to do literally with the chemistry in our bodies when we feel connected or disconnected to other people. So I guess if Yusuf is asking, other than wearing a mask and washing your hands 1,000 times, how can you protect yourself? Then it seems like being connected and working on this positive social environment around you is something that can also help your immune system.
It would be impossible to, imagine there's a huge rush. Imagine we could just stop time, just stop everything, just completely stop, and we have enough time to create a virus, a vaccine or something for COVID-19, and then we inject it into everyone, and then start time again, and then we all go about our lives, and everyone is immune to COVID-19, and then 2 months later, COVID-20 comes, and then we're gonna stop our lives again. Stop time, everybody just freeze. And then we come up with a vaccine. Okay. And then next, some volcano comes, or some bird, some bat eats, bites something, which stings a mosquito, gets a mosquito, which stings a horse, which nips a guy, which spreads, COVID-21 or whatever it is. The point is that we're inside of an integral system here. right? Like we talked about. And the only way to manage the trillions of viruses and the tens of thousands of viruses in the ice and all of the, we chop down all of the forests, and where's all the wildlife with all their diseases are coming closer to where people live. The only way to manage all this is by us to begin to manage our relationships between us. That is what is in our hand. And we have to, I talked to my mom who started to watch our show, and she said, it seems like you're, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it's like you're not, you're not saying what it is. You're not exactly saying what the thing is. And I understand her, because we're always answering, new students who come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, and they're always asking, like, okay, so what's the pose? What do I do? What's the mantra? What's the, how many times do I wax on, wax off? What is the thing to do? And the thing is that we are we're upgrading the software inside of us. It's not, I can't, and then that's also a problem. We're not selling anything. It's like, I don't remember who gave me these incense.
How many push-ups? How many push-ups?
Yeah, right.
How many
just burn these incense and say these lines, and then so it's a change, and we can't underestimate the power of nature. We can't underestimate that so we are always thinking we're up against global warming. We're up against tyranny. We're up against racism. We're up against all these things, but we keep seeing again and again and again, when we understand what's happening in life, that it's like, if you look at a race in the Olympics, like a mile or whatever it is, they run around the track 4 times. So you run around once, nothing happens. You run around twice, nothing happens. You run around 3 times, nothing happens. You run around 4 times, and then you win. It's like, it's this, right? It's like, we have to understand how it works. It's like you go around and around and around, and then it's the next jump. So we think we're just going around and around and around, and we're not understanding that there is this thing called nature, which jumps us up to another level. When a child is born, it's the most natural thing. Why is it such a miracle every time? How many tens of thousands, millions of kids are born every year? Not only that, horses have babies and birds have babies, but every time we see it, it's like, it's a miracle, because it's like coming from one realm, something's born, into a new realm, and every single time it feels like a miracle to us, even though it's the most natural thing that there can be. And we have to, and I'm saying this to all the people who are asking, all of our friends who are asking questions about this new kind of upgrade. We need to understand that we are in a process with nature. That is what we're doing. The action, our action as Kabbalists, our first action as Kabbalists, is to recognize nature and to start to agree with what is happening. And everything else happens after that. Once we get in the flow and we're not trying to fight it, here comes some virus and we need to fight it. And here comes something and we need to fight it. We need to understand exactly what is happening. Look at the big picture, understand ourselves, how we relate to it, and get in the flow with nature. And then we have this incredible force, greater than anything. And we're riding and working with that.
And to add to that, there's only one thing I can add. Shira Land here in the comments says, take the Kabbalah course. It's fantastic. For beginners like me, it really helps. So I couldn't have said it better, Shira. Thank you. Yeah, if you really
something. No, actually, the course is free.
Yeah, but if you really, if you really want to see how this wisdom works on all levels, both the knowledge level and the emotional level and the practical level, then definitely that's the way to go. That's the way to start. We have a step-by-step, user-friendly kind of course that you can enroll for free and check it out. So I think we are coming to a wrap, Seth.
Yeah, that was a strange hour, Asaf. That was the time that went fast.
How do you wanna wrap this?
Well, the guitar's gonna have to wait because we're already at 3:00. It's been sitting there for 2 episodes now, so maybe we'll start the next episode with the song.
All right, we will do that. I would say maybe something that we need to find a new source of confidence to life. That if we were used to, relying on our, on our strength, our power, trying to be strong against whatever happens to us, whether in life as individuals or as a society, trying to fight COVID, like you said. We need to find a new kind of confidence and wisdom and inspiration, and that is from the connection between us, from the fact that we're all connected. We need to start developing our sensitivity to that. And then we can find the most valuable resource in nature, the treasure of nature. And that is that unique influence that comes out from its hiding when we begin to connect, that raises us, that elevates our consciousness, that elevates our state of mind, that suddenly things happen in the world and you're not seeing it like a beaten animal that doesn't know where to go. Suddenly changes might be imminent in the economy and other areas, and you can see how it leads to a whole new stage, a whole new chapter of human society. And that's the kind of thing that needs to happen, because there's a big change that is coming. Major changes are happening. Like you started in the beginning of the show today, Seth, we've entered the last stretch of human development towards our connected state. This is something Kabbalists call the last generation. And this means that nature from now on is going to relentlessly push us, and we, on the other hand, have the ability to make a step towards where it wants to push us. And by that, we'll feel that development as a beautiful adventure rather than suffering. So let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
We say, in Kabbalah, we say, L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
see
for
you Tuesday.
Being here, for asking questions. We will see you on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be here, and let's finish with a song.